and roll, Chicago. Rock and roll, Chicago, my hometown. Well, I was born in the city, gonna rock your city, Chicago. Chicago rock and rollers are the best you're ever around.
Hey, this is Paul Martin
And Ray the Roadie.
for the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast. How's things today, Ray? How you feeling?
Not too bad. It's, it's not, this whole pandemic thing and this quarantine, it's really kind of a drag.
It is kind of a drag.
It is. Mercy, mercy, mercy. I don't know how long this is going to go on.
Oh, boy. You planned that. You planned that segue, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I did a little bit. We got a special guest today for our episode 50, our 50th episode.
Episode 50. No way.
Yeah, half 100.
Wow, that's cool. We're going to have to gather and do a couple shots of tequila or something.
That's right. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. And long time coming here, but we made it.
We made it to 50. Let's hope for another 50, huh?
That's right. That's right. A century of episodes.
So who's our guest?
Today we're speaking with Carl Giammarese of Chicago's very own the Buckinghams.
Yeah, we talked to Carl for almost an hour, and we got some great stories from Carl, and he was very nice and very polite and very forthcoming with his stories.
Thanks. Yeah, he very much so, and we really appreciate that he took the time out to do an interview with us.
Yes, we do. So let's get to it and see what Carl all that Carl had to say.
Let's go.
Welcome, everyone, to our 50th podcast, a 50th podcast. So we've got a special guest with us today. We've got Carl Giammarese of the Buckinghams. How you doing today, Carl?
I'm doing pretty good. I hope you guys are too. We're in crazy. It's a crazy time right now with this pandemic, and we're all kind of social distancing, and it's a different way of life.
But we're all becoming Zoom experts.
Yeah, we're becoming Zoom experts. I was trying to figure out how to take my whole band and do a Zoom everybody in and have everybody do a song together. So that's something that I'm looking into. I've been keeping busy with doing my little videos.
Yeah, I've noticed that you've done a few of them and several of the songs, right? Several of the Buckingham songs.
Yeah, I think I've done about 15 songs already. I've done all the Buckingham's hits and a couple other, album cuts. And then I started doing some of my other favorites. I did a few Beatles songs. I did I'm a Loser from my Tufano and Giammarese days. I did that. I did Blackbird. I did Yesterday. Did an original song. I think that was the most recent thing I did. I had my Cubs hat and my Cubs shirt on. I don't know if you guys are Cubs fans or not. But
you're looking at a couple of Sox fans.
I had a feeling. What is it with you Sox fan? I love the Sox too because I love baseball.
I do too. I miss it too.
And I've been out singing the national anthem for the Sox and for the Cubs many times. But we love baseball, but the Sox fans, they just hate those Cubs.
But we won't hold it against you. Yeah.
I've got Nick Fortuna, who's the other original Buckinghams. He's a Sox fan, and he hates the Cubs. And then Bruce Soberoff, our keyboard player, is a Sox fan also. But he's he watches the Cubs too. I was looking forward to this season so much because last year. Right about this time, I was getting ready to leave for the Happy Together tour, which was a 60s tour, the Turtles.
Right.
We've been on that tour many times, and it goes out for 3 months. I mean, it's 55 shows we did in June, July, and August. So I was on the road, so I didn't get to see a lot of baseball. So I was this year looking forward to it because even though we're playing, I'm around back and forth more than I was last year. And then this happened, of course.
So let's go back and let's start in the early years. You started out as the Pulsations, is that correct?
Yeah. That was first inception of before we were the Buckinghams. There was I've talked about this before. There was a great music scene going on in Chicago back in '65 and '66, and so many great bands came to fruition. You had the Eyes of March, New Colony Six, Crying Shames, Shadows of Night. We were the pop rock groups playing around, and we had a lot of venues to play. We had dances, mostly teen hops, teen clubs, dances, a lot of dances, Holiday Ballroom, Embassy Ballroom. There were all these different venues for us to play, and we all kind of knew each other. And I was in a band with my cousin Jerry Alardi. Jerry started the group. He was a drummer and singer. A group called the Centuries, and we were playing for about a year and a half or so. And Nick Fortuna was in that group. And after about a year and a half, 2 years of that, there was this other band, the Pulsations, playing. And so the Centuries broke up, and the Pulsations asked me to join their group. And I thought that was really promising at the time. They had two vocalists, Dennis Tufano and George McGrow, with the band, And so I came into the group, and it was in '65, and we started playing around the city, and we were getting a good response, and we had a pretty good sound for what was happening back then, and then of course a really big break came along, and 1965 in September, we won the audition to be the house band on a TV show on WGN called All Time Hits, and it was a variety show for 13 weeks, and we were the token rock band. So whatever was on the top of the charts that week, we would pick a couple songs, and we would do those songs on the show. We do a Beatles song, whatever was there. And, the sound wasn't that great because back then they really didn't know how to capture the sound of a rock band. And they kept telling us to turn down, I was playing on one, and the drummer's playing like this, it wasn't what, you couldn't put a lot behind it, but we got a lot of exposure from doing that show for 13 weeks. But what happened was we won the audition to do the show, but they didn't like our name. They wanted something to capitalize on the British invasion. So there was a guy we became friends with. His name was John O'Pager. He was a security guard that worked for WGN. And he came up with, he says, well, why don't you call it the Buckinghams? They want a British sounding name. And we thought about it for 1 minute, and we said, okay, the Buckinghams. So, we told them that would be our name. They agreed. WGN liked the idea. So we became the Buckinghams, royalty of rock and roll, and we started doing the show as the Buckinghams.
That's a very cool story.
It was great exposure because, WGN was a superstation and it was syndicated, so people were seeing it around the country too.
Right.
Chicago.
And not only a British connection, but we have Buckingham Fountain right here in Chicago.
Buckingham Fountain, yes, we do. A lot of people think that's why we came up with the name, but really, we were certainly aware of the fountain, The funny story was when we finally, that TV show led to a recording contract with USA Records, Chicago label. And they brought us in the studio in the old Chess Studios on South Michigan Avenue. We recorded a bunch of sides, and they were cover songs mostly because it was the songs we did in our show. We covered everybody. We did soul tunes, James Brown, Sam and Dave, whatever, and we did Beatles songs, and so we just picked out certain songs and recorded for the album, and of course then our manager Carl Bonifetti, who tapped on a great songwriter Jim Holvey for an original song. We wanted an original song after having with USA we had about 3 local Midwest hits with I Call Your Name and I'll Go Crazy and I've Been Wrong. and they were all cover songs. And we got a little bit of attention, but we were looking for that original song, and so he came up with, Jim Mulvey came up with Kind of a Drag.
Kind of a drag when your baby don't love you. Kind of a drag when you know she's been untrue.
We rehearsed it and went in the studio, and the rest is history. I mean, it just took off overnight, and it was our producer's idea to start adding horns to our recordings, because we weren't really a horn band, but he wanted to dress it up a little bit and make it sound bigger. So he brought his horn section, because he had a big band. It was Dan Belloc, who owned the Holiday Ballroom.
Right.
He produced us, and so we did Kind of a Drag, and that changed everything for us. That was just.
I'll tell you, my Kind of a Drag story was, that was what, 67?
Yeah. It was the number one record in the country by February of 67.
Yeah.
Came out late in 66.
Yeah, I was. I must have been just a lad of 12 or 13, and actually, my sister. I have older sisters who would always go and buy records, but the first single that I went and bought was Kind of a Drag, and from money I saved from cutting lawns or whatever I was doing at the time as a 12-year-old, and I probably still have it somewhere, but I don't know exactly where all my 45s are. But
that's the song that changed everything for us. All of a sudden, we were on the national charts, and it became a number one record on top of it. We were just it was a very exciting time. 67 was a magical year for Buckingham.
Now, a lot of bands from the Chicago area back in the 60s, usually a lot of them had their initial exposure on like WLS. Was that an outlet that featured you initially, or?
Yeah, because I'm sure that if you talk to anybody from all those groups, which you probably know, we do that Children's Rock show now occasionally around Chicago in the Arcada Theater, and it's right on Nesty's. It's a great venue to play. The people love it. They come out for that show. We've probably been at the Arcada about 5 times now doing that show. But if you talk to any of the guys, that's the Brian Shames and New Colony 6, the Ides of March, they'll tell you how much WLS and WCFL meant to us, as far as getting our careers going. And the radio personalities, of course, number one is Dick Biondi, who was so supportive, but all the other guys were too. All the, I could think of Dex Card and
John Records, Landecker.
Yeah, Landecker, and that was a little later, Landecker, but Art Roberts, Clark
Weber, right?
These guys were very supportive, and if they liked your record, if they liked what they heard, they would put it on a regular rotation on the station. So it would come on a certain amount of times every day. And on WLS, the exposure was great because you could hear it coast to coast because it was a 50,000 watt station.
Mm-hmm.
You could hear it all over the country late at night. I've had people tell me from back in the day, I've had Paul Schaefer tell me that, because he's a Canadian, he'd be up in Canada. He said, I live at WLS and I heard you guys back, he knew all about us and the history of the band and, so forth. But WLS and CFL, they were big supporters of us Chicago bands back in the day. They were very instrumental in launching us, getting us off the ground, no doubt about it.
Well, what I failed to say, I lived in Cleveland, Ohio at the time as a young lad, and so I would listen to WLS too with the transistor radio under my pillow at night, and that's how I got connected with Kind of a Drag. But now, what was the follow-up to Kind of a Drag? Now, you had several hits, but what was the next follow-up to that?
Well, the next follow-up was Don't You Care. But what happened was is really crazy. Here we had the number one record in the country, Kind of a Drag, and our record contract was up with USA.
Yeah.
I don't know why they didn't have the sense to re-sign us or whatever. And so, it's kind of a great position to be in, to have the number one record in the country and be looking for a record label, So everybody was knocking at our door, and we wound up signing with Columbia Records, and a new producer manager came into the picture, James William Guercio. Jim Guercio was our manager and producer, who later on went on to manage and produce the group Chicago. But anyway, so we signed with Columbia, and we were signing contracts on our way to New York, and a day later we were in the studio cutting "Don't You Care," which was another Jim Hovey song, and that was the song they were releasing as a single. And then at the same time, USA, because they still owned all the masters from the Kind of a Drag album, they released, to counter it, they released our recording of Lottie Miss Claudie as a cover tune. Because of the success of Kind of a Drag, Lottie went up the charts too. So we actually had 3 songs on the national charts at once, because Kind of a Drag was just starting to come down a little bit, and Don't You Care was up there in the top 10, I think, and Lottie was behind that. And so, we had a lot going on.
So Don't You Care was on Time and Charges, great. And your second one,
Yeah, actually we had two hits off of Time and Charges. We had Don't You Care, and we had Mercy, Mercy, Mercy also was off that album. They released Mercy as the next single Columbia did after Don't You Care. When they heard that recording that we did, they said that's got to be the next single. And it made us very happy, because it took us in another direction. It gave us a chance to do something a little different, because it's kind of it's kind of a soul tune. It is more soulful, and we got it from a couple soul guys. Johnny Guitar Watson and Williams had a minor hit with it, and our producer Guercio brought that song to us to put on the album. And of course, originally Mercy was a jazz hit with Cannonball Adderley had an instrumental, as Joe Zawinul wrote that song, and then the soul guys, Watson and Williams, put lyrics to it and turned it into a soul tune. So we took their version and copied that and recorded it. And of course, we were a pop group, and we were pretty hot at the time, and we just came off of 2 big hits. So, we had the bigger hit, of course. Actually, Mercy was the second biggest hit, I think, that we had, next to Kind of a Drag.
Now, did you record that album in New York?
Yeah, the Time and Charges we did in New York.
Well, you did 3 albums that year, right? 3 albums in 67, I guess, or 66, 67.
Yeah, well, the Kind of a Drag album we recorded in 66, and it came out in 66.
Oh, okay.
And then Time and Charges was 67. And then Portraits came out later in 67. And that was, Portraits was our Sgt. Pepper. The band put a lot of effort into that album, and we were really focused. And we spent a month or 2 out in LA. We rented a house, and we rehearsed every day and wrote songs, and, worked out the arrangements and went in the studio. And it was kind of a concept album, and we were expecting much bigger things to happen with Portraits. But, at the time we were a pop group that was making hit singles, and people weren't buying into us, I don't think, becoming a more concept album group. So it didn't work out.
it still produced 2 hits, right? Hey Baby and Susan, right?
Yeah. They stuck Hey Baby and Susan on that album. They almost didn't fit on those the sound of those singles, but they wanted to have the singles on the albums to sell albums, you know, and that's it made sense, you know, and so Hey Baby and Susan were on that album. And then of course the last album we did with Columbia was In One Ear and Gone Tomorrow, which was in '68, you know. And didn't have the success with the, you know, the single off of that album was a song that our keyboard player Marty Greb wrote, "Back in Love Again" was the song, and we just didn't quite do it. You know, it made it on the charts, but it went up a ways, but not like the success of the top 10 of the other songs.
Right. So you went from Chess Records in Chicago to New York to LA, and so you guys were doing some traveling at that time, huh?
Well, I mean, you know, we were constantly on the road. In '67, we toured, probably approached close to 300 dates we played that year. So we were always out playing, and you know, we would come into New York to record, you know, or LA, make a record, and then head back out again and go back out and play, you know. So, we were constantly on the go at that time, you know. That's why when people ask me, what was it like, or what do you remember, you know, well, at the time, I didn't have time to think about it, you know. But it was such a whirlwind, crazy time for us, you know.
What was it like working with Jim Gershia? I mean, he's obviously went on to, like you said, to be pretty successful with Chicago and Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And
well, Gershia was a very talented record producer. That's no doubt about that. He helped us after kind of a drag. We had success with another 4 top 10 records. He produced them. He knew his way around the studio. He was a great musician. You know, he could play guitar and bass. You know, he's a very creative guy, you know, no doubt about it. He was a good businessman. Let me just put it this way. He was a good businessman for himself. I don't know if that I could say. And like I said, he went on to manage and produce Chicago, and he did their first, I don't know how many albums. You probably know better than I do, but we had our differences too as Chicago with him, because we started to realize how important it was to have control of our own publishing and writing. And, you know, and he had that, you know, so pay a lot of attention at the time. We were too busy chasing girls and having a good time, you know.
So after the Buckinghams split up, and when was it, about 70 or so?
Yeah, we broke up. We were together from 65 to 70, and by 70 decided that you know, there were a lot of reasons. You know, people say, "Why'd you guys break up?" But you know, there's never one reason. I mean, you had guys in the band who wanted to try something different, do some different stuff. We had me and Dennis Tufano. We wanted to be singer-songwriters at the time. We started writing together, doing more of a duo. Our sound was leaning more toward what was going on in those early 70s with, you know, James Taylor, Joni Mitchell, Carole King, Eagles, America. We were kind of leaning that way musically. And we signed a record deal with, of course, with a great record producer, great music guy.
Lou Adler, right?
Yeah, Lou Adler. We signed with him, and that brought us out to LA quite a bit. We had some success with it, especially on a song that I wrote, a song called Music Everywhere. So that was what we wanted to do. And so, you know, we were kind of pulling in different directions. And if you remember the music scene, I mean, God, it seemed like overnight we went from AM to FM. And groups like us, the Grassroots, the Turtles, Gary Puckett, Union Gap, you know, we were sort of becoming a little bit passé, I guess, or whatever. Things were just changing. All of a sudden you had the Monterey Pop Festival. Woodstock had happened, and you had heavier sounds and Santana, Janis Joplin, and so forth. And so it was changing. All of a sudden there were albums, concept albums, and so the music scene changed a lot too. So that kind of, hurt us a little bit from what we were doing. And then all through the 70s, there were no Buckinghams. I mean, we didn't play at all, and there didn't seem to be much interest in 60s music, at all until 1980. All of a sudden, 1980 comes along, everything became 60s again.
Right.
Right. Well, I think there's a resurgence every 15 to 20 years of the music from 15 to 20 years prior to that.
Yeah.
It seems like
because that 60s music, that late 60s, it was such great music. It was great songs and great recordings and whatever. So our audience weren't old yet in 1980. They were, maybe in their early 30s or 35, but they were starting to become established. They had some money to spend. They wanted to hear their music again. They wanted to come out. The festivals became really big. I mean, the Buckinghams came back together in 1980 because of the program director from WLS, John Guerin, called me up and said, "Can you guys do a reunion show?" And I was a little like, well, I don't know, So I started calling the guys, and two of them were available, Dennis Tufano and Nick Fortuna. And Marty Grubb was playing with Chicago at the time. So he wasn't available, and we lost our original drummer, John Polis, had passed away just a couple months before that, so we didn't have him. So we got a collection of guys that we knew together and rehearsed for a couple of weeks, and went out and played Chicago Fest, and that was the summer of 1980. And Jane Byrne, our mayor of Chicago, was behind that. She was behind us doing that too. And then, 12,000 people came out on the pier to play that show. And you could feel this excitement again heating up for 60s music, Buckinghams. And then, we came back, played a few more dates around Chicago. And then for a couple summers, Dennis would come in because he lived in LA, and the three of us would get together with the band and play some more dates. And then all of a sudden, I started getting a lot of offers to do shows nationally. And that's when Nick Fortuna and I decided to put a band together and go out and play, and for real. And then before you knew it, it was 1985, and we got an offer to play on the 85 Happy Together tour, which played for 7 months. And we toured all over the country for 7 months. We played over 200 shows. That was a real launching pad for us to get back out. And we've been doing stuff ever since. We've had the band, a few changes in the group here and there through the years, but it's been consistent. We do still play a lot of dates every year. We were, before this COVID-19 happened, the pandemic, we were scheduled, all our dates for March, April, May, and June were canceled right away or moved to next year or late in the year. And most of July is gone now. It'll probably all be gone. Right. We're still sitting on about 15 dates in August, but I wouldn't be surprised if those dates went bye-bye.
Yeah, I'm hoping by September we get to get out and play some music and see some other bands and whatever. So,
Yeah, well, it's a crazy, crazy time, and it's something this world has not experienced in 100 years, I don't know what to say. It's just terrible when you see the suffering and the pain. Not only we have people dying, which is the worst that could possibly happen, and then of course there's a lot of people that are out of work now, and raise their family, and it's just a terrible situation. But we've got we're strong. This is a strong nation. We'll get through it. We
did 100 years ago, and technology's a lot better now.
Yeah. But
So getting back to the when you guys regrouped, I know Tommy Shekel was played with the band for quite a while, and we interviewed Tommy. Oh gosh, I don't know, almost a year ago now, wasn't it? Right?
Yeah, it's been about a year. I think he's like episode 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Well, Tommy is a very, very talented. We all know that he's a great drummer. I mean, we've heard him play, and he played with us for a lot of years. And he's still my dear friend. I mean, him and I have never lost touch, contact. We get together all the time. Our wives and the 4 of us get together, go have dinner. And haven't lately, but we still talk all the time. So he's still one of my best friends and a dear friend of mine, and talented in a lot of ways. I mean, he's a great drummer, but he's very creative. I mean, he's done a lot of artwork for me, and websites. And, I miss him on the road. It was one of the guys I enjoyed being out playing with when we travel. But, Tom's been out of the group now since, I think it was 2010. When he went with Paul Revere. And he fit really well into that group. He was really, it was a great career. It's just really a shame what happened to Paul Revere, because it was a great opportunity for him, and it was, they had a really great show. But we replaced him with, we have a Chicago drummer, Rocky Penn. And Rocky's been around Chicago playing with different people all the time, and great guy that, he's plays in the pocket. He's not as flashy as Tom, but he's, which is fine, but he plays, he backs you up great. He's, it adds a little vocals too, because he sings. But he's a really good drummer. He's really solid, and he gives us what we need. So he's been with us ever since Tom left. And then we've got Dave Zane on guitar and vocals. And Dave's played with a lot of different people. And he's a very talented guitar player and vocalist. I mean, he's the top end of our voice,
Right. Right. I know Dave pretty well. So
yeah. So he's a real nice guy. He's easygoing. I don't have to slap him or hit him or anything. He just goes along. He's one of those guys that goes along with things and easygoing. I'm just kidding around, but he's a really good guy.
Right.
And then Bruce Soberoff's been with us since '85, since we finished that Happy Together tour in '85. Bruce joined us, and he's been with us ever since, on keyboards, background vocals, And then we got a great horn set. We very rarely play without horns. And around Chicago, we've got a great section. And not just in Chicago, but when we go out a certain way or drivable dates, we've got Carlo Isabelli on the trumpet and Chuck Morgan on the trombone. And Dan Moffat on saxophone. And these guys are great players. Carlos and Chuck have been with us for forever. I don't even remember what year it is now. And, and when we go out on the road and do flying dates, I contract horn players because we have charts, and they read the charts, and we get a great staple of horn players in different cities, and they just come in and play with us, It's cool.
Right, yeah, we know Carlo quite well too, as a matter of fact. So.
Yeah, he's a good guy, he's on.
Now, since 2000, you guys recorded a number of other albums.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, I created a little recording studio so I could do a lot of pre-production stuff before we go in somewhere else and do it for real, for the drums and everything. But I can sort of scratch out the tracks, basic tracks, and put things together. And we've done a whole bunch of things. We did, we did a live direct to disc on our, I think it was a 25th anniversary show at the Vic Theater. It was kind of funky. It didn't come out the way we wanted it to, but we did a Christmas album that we still do a Christmas show several times a year because of that album. We did an album called Reaching Back. I thought it was a good idea to reach back to the sounds we had back in the 60s and do some new songs with that sound. because a lot of fans would say, hey, why don't you record some songs again, some new songs, but go back to that sound he had in the 60s. And I did that. I put it together, and it's a great album. But, it's really hard to get, our audience, we're sort of in a bubble. Our audience wants to hear the old songs and the old hits, and it's really hard to attract a new audience. And we're not going to, they don't buy new stuff. They want to hear the old stuff. And a young audience, they're not looking at us. We're the old guys out there playing. So
now the one album you mentioned, the one that was recorded at the Vic, that's Places in 5.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite albums. I don't see much press on it, but my question is, the a cappella version of Kind of a Drag, was that intentional or did that just happen?
It was intentional. For that show, when we did it, it was kind of more spontaneous. But then, we did an album. It was original songs. And me and Bruce Oberoff had a big part of that album. It was called Terra Firma.
Mm-hmm.
It was a collection of songs that Bruce and I had written over a period of time. And the album didn't turn out to be real cohesive as far as the songs being connected to one another. It could have been 5 different bands recording that album, the different sounds. I mean, they were done well. They were recorded really well. I mean, there was a song on there called 99.9 that I wrote that's a little more, I don't know what you would call it. It's not pop. It's almost, I could almost hear Enrique Iglesias doing the song. Did a verse in Spanish on there, And then there were pop songs on there. There was stuff that sounded a little more soulful. And we did a studio version of that's why you brought that up, Kind of a Drag. We did the a cappella version.
Kind of a drag when your baby don't love you. Kind of a drag when you know she's been untrue. Whoa, 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 listen to what I've got to say.
And I used on the vocals, the bass voice on that was a studio guy that we brought in to sing because none of us had that baritone, that was all the way back in 95. And we've done several things. And I've done re-records of all the hits because, Columbia, Sony owns all the masters to the original recordings of the hits. And
So now, tell us a little bit about your solo stuff that you've done. You mentioned reaching back and that the band did, but I noticed your titles of yours kind of have that same kind of feel to them, about your journey and living in the moment and trying not to fade.
Our ex-guitar player, his wife wrote lyrics, and a few songs I wrote myself, but I was just looking for, when I did that album, I was looking for a way to experiment and get into the digital recording world. I had a digital 24-track studio. I was sort of learning my way around that. So that album came out of songs I wrote and experimenting with that album. And then the Living in the Moment album I did a few years ago now. In my studio, and I did everything myself, and there's not even real drums on it. I programmed the drums, I played the bass, I played the guitars. Dave Zane played on one of the tracks, Living in the Moment. On that track, he played some guitar. I did the vocals. I had my cousin Jerry Alardi that I mentioned was with me in the Centuries back in the early 60s. Right. Great singer, great voice, just a great voice. So I had him come in and sing some duet stuff and harmonies with me. And it was a collection of songs that I had written. I just felt very creative at the time and wrote all these songs, and ideas were coming out like real fast. Sometimes you write something and you do something and you say, I'll probably never write another song. It's like, your creative juices are gone. You're done. Then all of a sudden, one day you wake up and you start jotting things down and writing songs again. And pretty soon I had a collection of a whole bunch of songs, and that's how Living in the Moment came about. And I put it out there, and people find it. And I don't, in this digital age of streaming music and so forth, and it would take a real big budget to get stuff, the publicity you need. So I just put it out there, and it's available. Living in the Moment is available on all the download sites and streaming sites like Spotify and iTunes and so forth, all the way down the line. There's probably about 30 different streaming sites. It's there, and I sell some of them. But that's the main reason I do it now, or do music, new music, is just to stay relevant and creative. I've got 4 songs right now that I've recorded, and I did an original song on my last little basement studio video, a song called There Comes a Time, and that's an original song. So I keep writing and recording songs and putting them out there. And then Living in the Moment was a great experience, and I got a lot of help, input from Jim Peterick on that album too, because he made a lot of suggestions and threw some ideas out at me too. So I just love to do it now. I just love to write and record and play those songs live. I don't know, with the Buckinghams schedule and so forth, that would take a big undertaking to have another entity, another band, and go out and play those dates. And who am I going to play them to? Those are original songs. I don't know if there's an audience for it, but it's creative, so I just love to write and play.
Well, it was. We were talking to someone not too long ago that said that they've almost rather put out, because of the digital age now and where everything is done digitally, that they'd rather put out a single now and then do a whole album. I mean, you get a single done, you get one song done, go ahead and put it out. And it's kind of come full circle from back in the days when we used to go and buy our singles,
Who's doing albums or collection songs on an album? It's just putting a single out there, They're even starting to dictate to us how we should write the song, put the hook in front, because somebody listens to it and they're attracted to it. If they listen to it for so many seconds, then they have to pay for it, So it's
right. And as long as you're out there putting music out there, then that you've got an audience out there.
So you guys are members of a few Hall of Fames, as well as the inaugural inductees for the Illinois Rock and Roll Museum on Route 66.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we were supposed to do that induction ceremony, and all this was supposed to happen right when the pandemic was going on, and they canceled it for a future date. And so we're honored and happy to be a part of that. I mean, Illinois is, that's our state, and Chicago is our city, and it's a big deal for us. We were inducted recently into the Iowa Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So that was kind of cool. We had an induction ceremony for that. We were the only out-of-state band that was inducted this year.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool. So we're taking it one state at a time. We'll be to the Cleveland Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
You work your way there. So where do we find the Buckinghams social media-wise?
Of course, you can just go to the Buckinghams on Facebook. And we're all over, all over YouTube now. Our Buckingham's Facebook up there. All the videos I've been doing. I've got my own YouTube going on with all the different videos I've done. The Carl Giammarese one. But Facebook, we try to keep that up to date all the time and put new stuff on there. And just go to the Buckinghams when you're on Facebook. And then our website is, thebuckinghams.com is the website. And normally I would say it's a good place to go to see our schedule where we're playing. But what's going on, what's up there right now needs to be either taken down or it doesn't make any sense to even try to change anything because we don't know yet what's going to happen with the dates and so forth. But there's other things to see besides the schedule, on the website. So the Buckinghams.com is a good place to go. And like I said, join us on Facebook. And I usually have an events page on Facebook. I try to keep that up to date. But it's unbelievable. We've been performing now over 50 years.
Yeah. 6 decades, I figured, right?
Well, we're very fortunate. We're very grateful. We have an audience that's very loyal, and they still want to hear the music, and they still kind of want to come out and join us. And I'm very grateful for that. We've got. I enjoy. When we finish a concert and we do autographs afterwards and meet people and listen to stories that people say. Oh, when you guys recorded this song, I just met my girlfriend, or we just broke up.
Sure.
But it's just an honor to be part of their history, their life, and it's a great feeling. So I hope we can continue doing that for a bunch of years yet. We're losing a year right now, though. What's going on here?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
We'll all be back.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Carl.
Thanks for
our 50th podcast.
Hopefully we'll see you soon somewhere.
Well, I wish I could say where, but when we start playing again, maybe you guys could come out and join us, hang out,
Most definitely. Thank you very much for joining us.
Okay,
Absolutely.
guys, just be safe, stay well, get past this, and onward and upward. God bless.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. So that was Carl Giammarese, the Buckinghams. Some wonderful stories, some great stories, some classic stories right there from Carl.
Most definitely. Some great stuff from back in the 60s and, how they got together and how they got those number one hits. I mean, gosh, you start out and bam, you got a number one hit out there.
Yeah, and they had several hits out there, and it was great talking with Carl and getting his insight into all that they've done and all that they've accomplished.
Yep, and they've been rocking the world since the 60s, and now they've come to a screeching halt just like everybody else, and they're chomping at the bit to get back out there.
And they will soon. I'm sure of that.
Yes, things are going to be starting to open up soon, and we'll all be able to get out there and see the Buckinghams somewhere around the Chicago area, I'm sure.
Yes, indeed. So don't forget, folks, to share the podcast and join our page. What else do they need to do, Ray?
Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube. Follow us on YouTube. You might find some surprises there once in a while. I'm just saying. So
Okay.
Make sure you follow us there.
All right. We will. I will.
Okay.
I already do.
All right. Great.
So, all right. Well, thanks to Carl once again, and we've, as a matter of fact, our next week's interview is going to be kind of a tie-in, kind of a follow-up to this one, to the Buckinghams. We'll see who that could be.
See you all next Tuesday. Same podcast station.
Podcast time.
Okay, Batman. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you.
Chicago, rock and roll, Chicago, my hometown. Well, I was born in the city, gonna rock your city, Chicago. Chicago rock and rollers are the best here are around. You don't believe me?
The Rock and Roll Chicago podcast does not own the rights to any of the music that's played on this podcast.
The music is used to promote the band or musicians that are interviewed.